All right. We're having a great time together, just in our sort of little small group.
It is our small group,
yeah. And it's been a lot of fun, a lot of laughter, which I hope you're experiencing in your own small groups. I'm Adrian, one of the co-leads at Vintage, along with Sarah, my fellow co-lead, and Renee, lead pastor at Twin Lakes Church. And excited to join you again for week 6.
Yeah.
Almost done. I really hope this has been good for you. But for our opening question, today, I mean, one of the most famous Daniel stories, Daniel and the Lion's Den.
One of the most famous stories in the Bible, probably, right?
I guess, one up me on that one. No, but yeah, you're right. It is. One is everybody knows this story, Daniel and the Lion's Den. So what the question is this: what is your most memorable experience with a wild animal? I know you guys have. I know you have.
I almost died. With mine. I'm in Africa.
Well, you ate its brain.
No, I didn't eat this brain.
Okay.
Although that would have saved my life.
All
maybe.
right.
We were walking out to this village in Africa, and out maybe 10 feet from where we're walking onto the road comes probably an 8-foot, 9-foot green mamba snake.
Oh, no.
Massive. And I didn't see it at first. And our guide stopped us quick and said, "Don't move."
So dangerous.
And then she took care of it.
With
her bare hands.
No.
Oh, yeah. A stick from the bush and just...
No kidding.
Yeah, she's
No
like,
fear. Wow.
because the rule there is if you don't take care of it, it will kill somebody else.
Absolutely.
So it's like this, it's your cultural
interesting.
community duty.
Right. You're
Anyway,
protecting
yes.
yourself. That's
So,
intense.
But that was the wildest animal I saw.
Well, I cannot top that, but I'm driving to Twin Lakes Church. We live in Santa Cruz. So it's a beautiful day. I decide to go along the coast. And as I'm going along the coast, I look down into Capitola, into the village, and I see a couple of whale spouts. And so I thought, I want to get out there in a kayak and just see get a little bit closer. Mindful of all the marine laws, of course. So I went down there to the pier and I rented a kayak and I got in the water and I'm paddling around and all of a sudden I hear this huge exhale and right next to me, like practically as close as you are right now, sir, a humpback whale surfaces and looks at me with its eye, and then it goes back down again and it swims underneath my kayak and it surfaces on my left and looks at me again and takes off. So that's probably the most memorable experience. Top that.
Well, I grew up in Florida, the land of wild animal experiences. I don't know, memorable. When I was a kid, I remember one of our field trips was to the Everglades National Park. It's a very famous place where many alligators live. And so getting there, the talk of the bus was like, guys, we're going to see alligators today. And in living in Florida, you could see them occasionally in a neighborhood or something, but we're going to their home. We're invading the nest or whatever. So we get to Everglades National Park. We're all kind of a little freaked out. And we get there and the person working there, our guide tells us, okay, kids, I think we're in 3rd or 4th grade. You're going to go and you're going to see there are no cages, there are no nets or fences. I think there were 2-foot wooden, little fences where alligators could walk under. It's to allow them to walk freely, but you know not to go past it.
Got it.
It said, if they walk out and if they chase you, you must run in a zigzag. That's what they told us.
Okay.
Wise advice.
I'm like, okay, guys. And so we're all like, okay, all right, I'm going to pretend I'm an alligator and you zigzag. And, we're doing all this thing. We get out to the park and what we see are tons of alligators laying out in the sun. And I don't think I saw one move 1 inch.
They were staged.
It was memorable for how boring that was. But we have Daniel, and he is having a face-to-face encounter.
Pretty memorable experience with some
wildlife. So I thought, it'd be fun. Let's tell this real quickly, summarize a story. I'll start.
Okay.
So we got Daniel, and he is one of the king's officials. He's interpreted dreams, and he is a man of character. So he's moved up the ranks. And the problem when you have somebody like that are the other people, his peers,
That's right.
Don't like him.
There's a glass ceiling in the office, and its name is
It's Daniel. Yeah, there's no way we're gonna catch up with this guy because he's too nice, he's too good at his job, and we hate him.
Right.
And so they're trying to find how do we get rid of Daniel?
Right.
A way,
And
a way to take him down.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Daniel's not bragging about this. Look at me, I'm so religious. I pray every day. But they spy on him.
Yeah, because he prays.
And they
3
see
days
him
a-
up there
yeah.
in his room, and the window's open, and he's praying 3 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And they think, if only there was a law against praying.
Yeah.
And then they figure out we can get the king to make a law.
Right. Let's do it ourselves. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
King, don't you think
There ought to
it'd
be a law.
good idea
Right.
that nobody bows to anybody else or prays to any other god except you? He goes, yeah, sure.
Great thinking.
Just sign right, here, and
We got
then
the bill written
as
for
soon
you.
as soon as he signs it, like we know a guy,
Yeah, that's right.
and the king regrets it.
He does.
Right? Isn't that
but
funny?
what can he do? It's the
signed
law of the Medes and the Persians, which was a good idea initially. I understand from history buffs that they were trying to create a society that was based on law, not just the whim of the king.
Right.
Correct.
And now as the king is like, I gotta live by the law,
Yeah.
and I can't just change it.
Yeah. And so the consequence of this prayer,
Right.
we got this. I guess they had dens of lions back then that they just kept for this purpose.
Handy
kill people.
torture chambers.
They throw him in, and I mean, the king really doesn't want him to die.
No.
He's like,
Yeah.
I hope you make it through this.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
right. Exactly.
and it's funny. The king goes and he's like, can't sleep because like I think he considers Daniel his best advisor, but maybe a friend. The way it
yeah,
describes
exactly.
him,
He really loves him.
And he's the first one that jumps up the next morning.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
light. And he's like, it's light. I'm going out
I
there.
gotta
and
find
jumps
out
up.
Almost
what
like
happened
if there's any chance he survived, let's get him out.
Right.
as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And then at least I remember my childhood mind, he's there petting the lions.
The Daniel
and
is-
licking him in the face. And they're just, playing with a ball of yarn that he fashioned.
They're on their back. Yeah. Right.
But so we have Daniel.
Right.
But you know what he gets in trouble for is his dedication to the Lord.
That's right.
And really one of the, today, what we would call a spiritual discipline of prayer, of making sure, for him, 3 times a day.
That's right. And it's not something he started when the law happened.
Yeah. Correct.
Like, I'm going to show how devoted I am.
Yeah.
If there's a law against prayer, I'm going to pray. It's just something he'd been doing his whole life.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that God calls us to do. We've talked about reaping and sowing. A lot of the things God calls us to do isn't because he's up there like, I really hope you guys will prove yourself to be, good followers of mine. But he knows all these things are really for our benefit, And so one of the questions I thought would be great to answer is question number 4. What is a spiritual discipline you have tried to develop or wanted to get going in your life, but have found it difficult to maintain?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
I
Sarah,
can
you
jump
start.
right in.
Yeah.
Silence is brutal for me,
Yeah.
Silence is totally easy for me.
obviously.
I could keep silent all day long.
Yeah.
Really.
I'm an extrovert.
Let me tell you about
I
my
love
time
people.
in
I'm
silence.
just going to talk
Yeah,
over
especially
you.
when people are talking.
Yeah.
But silence, honestly, I get distracted in silence easier than I'm distracted with noise.
Yeah.
Like I need music even playing in the background but it's good for me. It's good for me to force myself to slow down and block out all the noise. And it takes me a while, but eventually I get to the place where I can be still enough to hear. But it's hard. It is not one of those things. Some people just turn it on. Like I'm going off, turning everything off and I'm good. I cannot do that. It takes me time. So I have to work at it. It doesn't come naturally.
Yeah.
What about Shuey?
Yeah, me, we were talking earlier and I said, reading scripture was tough for me for a while because I'd always think what happens is I'll get to it. That's the phrase that happens. And I always thought I'll do it at night but I'd always fall asleep. And what happened recently is I started waking up early because of school. And the only time where there is actually silence in my house is at night, but then I want to fall asleep. But in the morning before everybody wakes up, it's a very quiet place. And I started doing that. But so that's been good. It was hard before, but now it's good. But I would say prayer. And I think partly maybe I think for me, the reason it's hard is sticking with it. Like, I think partly with the silence, when I begin to pray, I get so distracted. And I start praying and I'll just start by praying to God. and thanking him for what he's done. And then I start thinking about like what's for breakfast later. And then I get on this like thought rabbit trail. And then I think, oh wait, I'm praying, and I'll try to start over. And I think for me, what's been hard is finding a good rhythm of how to do that. And I think the most successful is when I pray the Lord's Prayer and use that as an example. And but that, for me, that's been the hardest one. And there are some things I'm looking into to try to help kind of hone that in, where I can really spend quality time speaking to the Lord and letting him know what's going on, and not getting so just caught up with what's next.
That's good. I would say, and when we talk about spiritual disciplines, that's a phrase that's often used for things like prayer,
Right.
meditation, solitude, silence. And another one is fasting. And that's something the Bible talks a lot about. It often talks about fasting and prayer together. There were times in both the Old and the New Testament when you see so many people fast.
The regular part of their week.
And in
For a lot of
fact,
people,
until really later in the Reformation, in the 1500s and 1600s, for centuries and centuries, fasting was an expected normal part of a Christian's life. You learn self-discipline and it focuses you and so on. But it's something that, generally speaking, we've forgotten. Obviously it's because we're emphasizing grace and you're not saved through fasting. But it must be good for you in some ways. And of course, some science is showing that it may indeed be good for you physically, but it's also good for you mentally. It focuses you. And that's the one that I have the hardest time with. I love food. I love to eat. And I have fasted, and I liked it. Even if you just fast for a meal or two, it's like, I'm doing this intentionally, that this is a good thing. My body doesn't control me. I control my body.
Right.
Always good to remind yourself of that. But this is something you even see Daniel do later in Daniel chapter 10. He talks about how for 3 weeks he fasted and didn't eat choice food or meat or wine for 3 weeks. So it's not a complete fast, but it's a fast from, the best kind of food for 3 weeks. And it also says, he mentions, and this tells me something about Daniel, and I used no lotions at all for 3 weeks.
We got this. He has a skincare routine.
He has a skincare regime, and he fasted from that too for 3 weeks. But whatever you're fasting from, as Protestants, we don't have that a lot in our tradition. Catholics do. But to me, that's something I'd like to rediscover.
Yeah, I think sometimes we try it in during Lent, I think more Protestant churches or evangelical churches are leading up to Easter. It's like, hey, what's something we can, not do.
Cut out.
But you know what's interesting, I think today, I think because it's a cultural thing, when I hear people talk about fasting, like, you know what? I'm not going to open Instagram for 20 days.
Right.
But I'm not, which I will say is probably very hard. But I think there is something different about food.
Right.
That the reason that it happens, Jesus did it, Daniel does it. And the times I've done it, it's I don't know, for me, it's been like this, after you're done, I can do that, and it seems so daunting before.
Totally.
Because you're always hungry right before. Though I remember one time I fasted for 3 days. I was like, I want to be so dedicated to God, but I ate so much right before that I started the fast. Maybe this will last.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
But some people, I will say, we're talking about fasting. Some people can't fast, right?
That's true.
I mean, Sarah, you mentioned that.
Yeah, so I can't fast from food, but there are other things that I can fast from. And to then be intentional with that time.
Right.
Like as you're fasting from a meal, what are you filling that time with that you would normally be eating? And how are you focusing on the Lord or reading scripture or whatever? So
that's good.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel just shows us, this dedication to the Lord through, like Renee mentioned, these spiritual disciplines, praying. We have scripture, solitude and silence and fasting. And something that, it's not something we do for our salvation. It's not something we do to earn God's favor.
That's right.
But it is something we can do for ourselves. Like we're talking about sowing and reaping. I mean, if I said, hey, what's something you could spend your time doing and sowing in your life? You probably could come up with worse things than prayer, reading the Bible,
Right.
Solitude, meditation.
Yeah.
I think those are God has blessed us with these things to help us.
And again, it's just incremental, right? I mean, Daniel was just doing these things every day.
Yeah.
That's all. But incrementally, he was developing both a habit and also a reputation.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah. And that people saw that.
Yep.
Well, I hope this helps spark some more conversation with you. There's lots more questions that you can answer with your group. And I hope it's like this, just fun conversation, between friends. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.